In this video, we're going to move into C++ and start working with functions that actually give us back other things, give us back an output. Here I'm going to be writing two functions. First, write a function that adds two integers and returns their sum. And second, write another function that returns the average of two integers. Let's go ahead and write the first function. Now, did you notice the word return in both of the statements for the function? If you look here in our int main, we also have that word, return 0. And if you'll notice, I wrote functions before in robot C, but I didn't say int main, I called them a void. A function that gives you back a value must have a return type. In this case, in main's case, it returns an integer. Now main is a somewhat special function, but it's not the only function that can return integers. Let's write that function and then let's see, what does that return even do? What does it mean to return something from a function? So, I'm writing the function to add two integers and return that sum. The sum of two integers will be itself an integer. So I say int, and I name my function, add2. And now I need two integers to come into my function as my input arguments, or my parameters. Int a, int b. Always remember your scope blocks. Now what I want to return is the sum of a plus b. So let's do that in a different variable, just to show the steps. Int sum equals a plus b. Return sum. Okay, so now where is all of this going? What does it mean to return? I want to write now a testing program. And this is actually how you should be writing your code when you're writing functions. Write the function, and then write a small main that will test it. Now, let's see what happens if I make a new variable, integer, s. And I'll initialize that s to 0. This is where I'm going to be storing that return value. And now I want to call it. Well, s equals add 2, and let's just add 5 and 4. Let's see out s so that we can see it actually working. I chose the word sum in my function name, right here. But I'm storing it in a variable called s that lives in main. A key part about functions is that the names of the variables in the functions do not need to match the names of the variables when you use the functions. This is sometimes difficult to get around. In this case, I'm just storing it in a variable called s. You'll notice also that I'm sending in constants 5 and 4, not a and b. What the function will do is as follows. I'm going to call this function, and the first input argument, 5, will go to a. The second, 4, will go to b. So what this is really saying is that when you create these two variables, int a and int b, set a equal to 5 and b equal to 4. Now, the order of the input arguments when you write the function must be the same as the order when you call it. It matches 1 for 1, separated by a comma. Now return sum. What happens? In fact, I'm not getting the variable sum. It sounds like I should be. It sounds like it should return to me a new variable whose name is sum and whose value is the sum of a and b. But that's not what's happening. In fact, what happens is that the value of sum only goes back. And that's why I was allowed to use a different variable name here. S is an integer, so it's the appropriate return type, because this one returns an int. And then its value is set to whatever the value of sum is at the end of the function. So in our case, a will be 5, b will be 4, a plus b will be 9. The value of the integer sum will be 9, and that value only, the number itself, will be returned back and placed into the variable s. Let's give this a run. So I will compile. I'll move it over. And here is my output. I see the number 9, which I should. The sum of 5 and 4 is 9, stored in the variable s. Let's go deeper into the idea that the names don't have to be the same. Let me create now two new variables. Int x is 0 and y is 0. Let me ask the user for them. Now I can pass in x and y. Now, we really need to be careful here. Just in the same way that sum's value, but not sum itself, got passed back, x's value and not x itself is going to be passed into the function. This is a very complicated topic that often takes several lectures to fully understand. As a result, we're not going to discuss it in much detail in these videos. We're going to need to solve a lot of problems to fully understand it. The point is that what this function call will do is it'll look at whatever value x is currently storing. Then it will copy that value, the number, but not the variable, and let a have that number. Let's run it again with 5 and 4. I have to recompile, and now it's asking me to enter the two integers. I can enter 5 and 4. At this point, x, it will be 5 and y will be 4. When I call the function, it will copy those values 5 and 4, call the function, and set a and b to those values. And I do in fact see 9. So the key takeaway here is that I didn't need to have anywhere near the same names when I called the function. In the next video, we'll take a look at the second function, the average, and I'm actually going to call a function that I've already written to solve that problem.